Welcome to Rebel Speak and today's Be Encouraged. We are looking at Ezekiel 17, and kind of the thought I have today is be planted well. Be planted well. And there was, in the 70s, there was this expression, bloom where you are planted. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes life calls us to resist some of the ways we're planted. But today, in this chapter chapter 17 of Ezekiel, in just 2 verses, or maybe 3, we're looking at a time when the southern nation, Babylon, has come in and taken away their king, King Jehoiakim. He's been taken away as a captive to Babylon, and the best and the brightest, you hear people talk about that, have been taken to Babylon. And it left behind is Zedekiah. I think he is a king. I'm not sure with the language for him, but it's Zedekiah, the brother of Jehoiakim. And he has made a deal. He's kind of like sworn an oath of faithfulness with the king of Nebuchadnezzar. So king of Nebuchadnezzar sweeps in and takes away the leadership from the land and leaves Zedekiah. I get these names a little confused, but he leaves Zedekiah in the land to lead the people faithfully, being faithful to Nebuchadnezzar. And it's this story is in Jeremiah, and here is a bit of it in Ezekiel, where Zedekiah wants more power, and he turns, I believe it's to Egypt. He turns in the story to another. But what we're looking at today is simply the vision. God doesn't like when Zedekiah turns to Egypt. It's not the vision God has. And what's interesting to me is that in the book of Isaiah, which I've been looking at in a thing called Isaiah Meanderings, but I've been looking at the book of Isaiah, God is very angry at the privileged. God is very angry at the royalty and the leadership. And the harshest judgment of God is against them. And so I truly feel that they are taken out. They're the first, they're taken out to Babylon as captives. We know the story of Daniel there, but they're taken out. And I believe that God has a vision that when the people that are causing the most problems, the privileged people that are crushing and oppressing, are removed from the land, God has a vision for Zedekiah, and we're going to see it, we're going to get to the text, has a vision for a flourishing. He talks about it as a low plant. So it's not this great plant, it's a low, but it's fully flourishing. And another encounter that happens at this time is, I think it's in the book of Jeremiah, there's a real call to get rid of slaves. So God never meant for Israelites to serve and be slaves to other Israelites. And the reason I bring this into this storyline is that I believe that God was setting up, that the culture had been so crushed by the leadership, that when God pulls the leadership out of the land, there's a new opportunity for righteousness in the land, a new opportunity to grow a little differently than the way they've grown before, but to grow well and to grow differently, to grow righteously. So yes, you're not the kingdom you once were. You're actually under Nebuchadnezzar, but there's an opportunity for you here to grow well, to grow righteous, but you will grow different. But there's an opportunity for you to set up a kind of a land that's not epitomizing injustice and oppression. And Nebuchadnezzar can't get the vision for that because he's committed to the vision, the prior vision of the day. He's committed to a vision of kingship that looks like power. And so he acts in a way trying to regain power, and it doesn't go well. This is the whole story of the prophets is power grabs don't go well for those grabbing the power. Meeting one far greater than your plans that are not in sync with Yahweh's plans. So let's look at 17. We're just going to kind of read this, and I'm just going to read it. Here we go. Then the message came to me from the Lord, Son of man, this is how God refers to Ezekiel. Tell this story to the people of Israel. Give them this message from the sovereign Lord. Okay, so this is an allegory, and kind of the point of an allegory is for you to wrestle through it a little bit. It's not feeding you, kind of sometimes for us now, truth is so information laden, truth. And it's funny because we use the language of story all the time. I think there's almost kind of I don't know, it seems odd to me because we want things quick and easy. Just give me the facts. But stories should be places where we wrestle and think, and they disturb us and they pull us forward. So Ezekiel's going to have this allegory. It's not going to be spoken to them just directly. And they're meant to wrestle with the allegory and to hear. Again, that trying to get them to hear. How can I help you hear? I don't know, somehow I'm thinking of dance, like a powerful dance can speak so much of life and death and beauty. Like there's these other means of conveying truth that are very powerful. So here's the story. This story to the people of Israel. Give them this message from the sovereign Lord. A great eagle with broad wings full of many-colored feathers came to Lebanon. Okay, came to Israel. This great eagle is Nebuchadnezzar and the nation of Babylon with all of its power. Okay, it is great. It is powerful. And it came to Lebanon. He took hold of the highest branch of a cedar tree and plucked off its topmost shoot. That's the King Jehoiakim, and all the other leaders, except left behind is this brother. So there's this removal, and this removal of the people that have been causing oppression, this removal of the people that have created such anger and frustration in the land. They're removed. Okay, he took hold of the highest branch of a cedar and plucked off its topmost shoot. Then he carried it away to a city filled with merchants where he planted it. So all that leadership, all of that privileged elite people have been taken away to Babylon. And there are those that are left behind. Then he planted one of its seedlings, that's King Zedekiah, in fertile ground. Okay, so not in, I just want to say in fertile ground. They're planted well, and that's my thought today, be planted well. Sometimes we find ourselves in circumstances that are so different from our expectations. I want to say we can't delight in them, but there's another thought. We refuse to delight in them. That we can be put in situations and places that are so different than our expectations that we refuse to delight in them. Okay. But they're in fertile ground. You're in fertile ground. You're in a good place. Don't let the circumstances dictate disappointment when you are actually in a place to flourish, to be fruitful, to find abundance. Don't let your expectations of this circumstance defeat the beauty of the moment and situation you're in. Because I believe God's trying to grow a new crop, new crops, new types of food. I believe we are in a moment right now where God would love to see, God is wanting to encourage in your life in situations and circumstances that are different than what you have hoped for, so that God can create new fruit that's not like the old fruit, because the old fruit was so elitist oriented. It was so, there's a word I want where, it's putting everybody in position and elitist. I'm not getting the word I want. But it wasn't a world that was reaching out to all and embracing all. It was a world that was oppressive because it had favorites. And so there's something about the circumstance that we find ourselves in that is wanting to grow things differently. And we have this idea, no, a happy life or a well-situationed life looks like this. But you're actually in circumstances that the land is fertile, and you're meant to grow new type of vines, right? New type of vines that are holistic and creative and birthed out of this season of your life. That there's something about the situation and circumstance you're in that's going to give birth to very different but beautiful, flourishing things. So he planted one of its seedlings, King Zedekiah, in fertile ground beside a broad river where it would grow as quickly as a willow tree. Okay. It took root there and grew into a low spreading vine. Its branches turned up toward the eagle, and its roots grew down beneath it. It was in right relationship with Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, God is not wanting destruction for these people left behind. It's in right relationship with King Nebuchadnezzar, and it's rooted well. I just want to say that it's rooted well. I think of that Zedekiah, do not despise the day of small beginnings, because I delight in the stuff of beginnings. I delight in what happens in beginnings. I delight in something new. God's trying to do something new in the land here. God has a plan, that's something that doesn't look oppressive, that doesn't look like what it had looked like before. There's a new vision. And here it goes. It soon produced, it's got these strong roots. It soon produced strong branches and luxuriant leaves. Something new, something beautiful. But then another great eagle, and we're going to watch, and in this story, I know it better in the book of Jeremiah, there's going to be this allurement to other sources of power that somehow we're certain that our lives are going to return to what they once were. We want to look the way we once did, and the eyes to see the new thing that God's seeking to establish amongst them are not there. And so Zedekiah rebels, and Nebuchadnezzar comes and brings down the remnant city there, the remainder folk in the city. But there's this vision here, beautifully stated in Ezekiel 17, that there's this new thing that God is wanting to do. He's taken out the terrible leadership. He's removed it. And there's Zedekiah trying to grow back the same bad, terrible dichotomies that God so gladly got out of there, took them away. And of course, great things happen in Babylon. God's always bringing forth life. It's God's character, always bringing forth life, always growing fruits of goodness. Wherever the people of God are, beauty is moving forward. But in this chapter, the vision is for the people to be in the land and to flourish in a new way that grows a different type of vine, right? But it's got luxuriant leaves. And we know that image of leaves is healing and life and goodness. And so I want to just speak a word of prosperity to you in whatever your circumstances are. And if you find yourself just frustrated and looking to past iterations, I want to say God might be wanting to grow a new thing in you, whereby the breadth of the people flourishing in the land is wider. It's wider. Salvation is not rooted in privilege, but in the goodness of God. And God might be working through your life and your circumstances to grow a new vision of beauty and life, to grow a vine that spreads broadly. I love that idea, this broad spreading vine versus that elitism of the Tower of Babel. God bless you.